Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well and having a beautiful day. In today's video, we will be talking about using up some Christmas scraps to make a beautiful project and try and reduce my scrap basket as normal. Okay, so join me, collect all of your Christmas scraps, and we will get started. We will be making some stars. In particular, we'll be making some friendship stars and also doing a little bit of foundation paper piecing. All right, so let's get started. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and leave your feedback down below. So we're making some half square triangles and I'm using Christmas fabrics as I have indicated. Also, there will be a link in the description box for the pattern if you would like to make this beautiful quilt. Now, just bear in mind that I am using a background fabric of white and I'm using any scraps that I can get. I'm showing you here that I have a piece of scrap with a sort of a blue stripe into it, and I'm using that also. I'm not really bothered of what it has in there, as long as I can particularly show that half square triangles. All right, so I'm using up everything that I possibly can. So just to point that out, so it's not a mistake, it's just scrap that I'm using. Okay, so we're going to lay out the block, and I am indicating that I'm going to use a color in the middle, a Christmas color in the middle that's going to really highlight the block. And also, when you lay out your stars, make sure you're moving in a clockwise direction or an anti-clockwise, okay? As it is at the moment, it is not correct, and I hope you would have noticed that, all right? So we need all of the points to be following each other. So point down, point down, point down, etc. So it goes down again, and you can see that movement. Okay, so hopefully you can see that this one is particularly wrong and it needs to be turned. Also, do consider that you can use the white or the color, okay, of the half square triangles to show the movement of your friendship star. Just bear that in mind, all right? And that is simply it. So we are going to sew this together as a 9 patch. And when you do choose whatever color for your stars, make sure that all of the squares are the same size so that you don't fall into any particular issues. All right. And I am using cream for my background. All right, so what I'm going to do now is trim this down to the correct size, and I'm going to add it into that middle. Okay, so you'll be making half square triangles and some center square, and hopefully everything works out really smoothly for you. This is a very enjoyable project. All right, so grab all these Christmas wraps. What I would say though is make sure that they're ironed and flat and neat. Don't use something that is all crinkle, all right? And I do feel that looks really nice in the center there, that green Christmas fabric. All right, so let's get started, and you will just sew this together as a 9 patch as normal. All right, so let's move on to doing the foundation paper piecing. So you need your strips again. So I have an example here, and I'm going to be using ordinary paper that you use from the printer, okay? And I'm going to demonstrate to you how to do it. So all you need to do, basically, make sure your strips are ironed, as I said, very important. You can use variant sizes of the strips, all right? You don't have to use the same size. I think different sizes is better. The paper tears off quite easily, so don't worry about that. I would say definitely to use a shorter stitch length that will allow the paper to be ripped off easily. Okay, so make sure your stitch length is nice and short. So, for example, use a 2.5 or 1.5 for your stitch length. Okay, now to get started, you need your size of paper. The pattern will tell you which size you need. And I'm going to draw a line a 1/4 inch from the diagonal point to point, just to ensure that it comes up easily. In effect, really, what we are making here is a half square triangles with foundation paper piecing on one side, and on the other side, you're just going to have your background fabric as normal. All right. So I'm placing my strips here. I have already identified which strips I want to use. Do ensure that your strips go beyond your paper just to make sure that it's the right size. You can use fatter, skinnier. Remember, as I said, it's entirely down to you. Trim them down to size or leave them slim. I personally find that if you use different sizes, it gives you a better outlook. So I'm going to draw a line from a quarter inch from point to point, okay? You'll understand why I am doing that, okay? So I'm drawing that line now, and I'm going to take my strip. You can start with any colors you want, but I am following my example here, okay? Because I want them to be uniform. Even though it's scraps, I want it to be uniform. And I am lining up my strip here on that same line, okay, a quarter inch from the point. Very important. Also remember to keep the strips going beyond the square, and I'm just going to sew on that line, okay? Notice that it was front side up, okay? Front side up. Very important to note that. So once that is done, we will move on to the next step. And basically, as I said, make sure it goes beyond. We will trim it off later, okay? It's very important. If you cut it too short, you'll have a problem, okay? And again, I'm using a darker fabric, again, building from the first example that I have done, all right? And I'm going to lay that front sides together, and I'm going to stitch on that side again. I'm going to turn it because I'm right-handed, so I can align myself properly and stitch from point to point. Okay, just make sure you finger press to remove any folds, because when you sew in strips, you tend to get those folds. So make sure you finger press and it's lovely and flat. And I'm just going to continue doing the same thing all the way down until I finish up that side. Remember, I am copying the other one, so I'm looking for fabrics that's similar and goes beyond the balance of the paper. Don't have it short, because once you fold it over, it wouldn't be enough. So it must be long enough to go beyond the paper. And again, I'm turning it just so that I'm right-handed and to sew it yet again.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me.
All right, so we're going to make sure and trim it away now, okay? So again, the reason why you need to trim it away is excess. We don't need, isn't it? But do not trim the paper. Line up your ruler right to the edge and make sure you can cut it nice and straight. Do not cut the paper, otherwise you're reducing the size of your block. Okay, and now all of this is literally scraps. So you see the reason for just making sure it extends, otherwise you'll be wasting the fabric. Okay, and that's one half done of your square. All right, so next now we're going to sew on the background fabric. Make sure though that it is slightly bigger than the sheet of paper that you're using, and you're going to cut it slightly bigger also. All right, and once you've done that, all you need to do now is to cut it again. Remember, it's bigger, so even if you cut it from point to point, you will be okay. All right, and we're going to do the same thing and just sew it on front sides together just to fill out the space and complete that particular area. So that way you will then make up the whole square. All right, Make sure it's nice and flat and it's trimmed nice and neat. Front sides together and sew. Okay, and that is it. That is simply it. And now you can just simply trim away to the size and requirement that you need, and you should be all right. Don't have any problems. So I'm just going to line it all up again and trim. Make sure it's nice and tidy and it's squared off equally. And all you need to do now is just simply tear away the paper. And hence the reason why I said your stitch length need to be nice and tight so it tears away so easily, so you do not rip the fabric apart.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, well, I don't wanna jinx it, baby, and twist myself at the spine.
Yes. Now let's go to the main star and for our patchwork. And all I have done literally is added 4 together in the middle here, and I've aligned it this way so that you can actually see that sort of diamond shape. You also need your 4 background squares yet again, and these are the same size as your patchwork. So I'm just going to lay this all out now, and when you're laying this out to get your legs, you really are thinking about making sure that the legs, the points here, actually make a V with your background fabric, and that's the easiest way to actually remember it. So if you're making a V like that with your background fabric, then you can actually see your legs appearing. So that way. So don't get into that habit of doing it that way. So if you see it in this position, then you just turn it. Sorry, that's upside down. You just turn it so that it is in the right way. And again, just keep another way of remembering. You can simply think about keeping the edge here on the background fabric, so then you ensure you get that V. So again, the edge on the background fabric. So if it goes that way, then you know you've done it correctly. So the printed patchwork matching against the background fabric. All right, again, let's do this one now. The print against the background fabric, the print against the background fabric. And all I need to do now is just take my 4 squares and add it to the corners. And then your main Christmas scrappy star is completed. All right. Now, if you think you wanted a different sort of pattern within the middle, you can move it around. So you can play with it and see what you think you get. If you want, you can turn it this way. So you will have the background fabric in the middle. Okay, so you'll have that one. Okay, gives a slightly different sort of visual appeal, but again, you have all of this area here to do, just negative space to do your quilting. Again, if that's what you're into and you want to do that, by all means you can do that, or you can simply just do just 2 in the middle. Again, that looks pretty cool also. You can have them all going one way. Again, that looks pretty cool also. It's really down to you and how you want to play around with it. But I kind of like the middle, all of the patchwork going to the middle. So that is what I'm going to stick with. I kind of like that. And the way how I stitched all of the pieces together was that I added cream and a dark cream and I ended with green. So I wanted to highlight that in the middle there. If I were to change it, then I'm not really doing that per se. I'm not really doing that. I'm doing something else. You know, I'm making a different sort of patchwork. It's showing in this corner here, and but it looks nice. Either way, it looks really nice. From the camera's view, it looks, to me, looks like little crowns, but it's entirely down to you. But I'm going to stick with the prints in the middle. All right, so we're going again to stitch this together just like we would the friendship star. Okay, went ahead and stitched the quilt top together. This is what I've come up with. All the details will be the patterns for the sizes, etc. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and quilt and I will show you the results. All right, so this quilt measures 52 inches squared, and I've just thrown it over the chair here so you can see what it looks like. All right, so let's go through what we did. So I bordered the star in the middle with the Christmas red. Again, it looks really beautiful, loving that. It does look very Christmassy as I've used all of these Christmas background here into the quilt. Let's go in and have a look at the main feature of the quilt, which is the star. It looks really beautiful. I love what I've chosen for it. I used yellow thread for the quilting. I thought it would go actually, and I think it does look nice. I've done swirls in this area here, and I moved on to do some feathers with this one here, but then dot to dot, and surrounded it with that quilting technique, which my brain escapes me now what it is. And I did sort of a twirl of the swirl of the feather there. I did lots of quilting. It's quilted really nicely. It didn't take me long to do. I always say that, but it took a normal time, to be honest. It did. It didn't take long because my machine works really well and I don't really have problems with them. So they just keep going. But it looks really nice. On the bigger blocks, I just did big quilting. So you can see there, I did some loop-to-loops. On the green Christmas print, I just did swirls. On my friendship stars here, I did a lot of dot to dot, and this helped it to finish really quickly. Yeah, and that's what I do. So I let the blocks tell me what sort of quilting to do, because I knew I wanted the center to be the feature of the quilt. That is the you know, the focus of the quilt. So I spent my time really focusing on the quilting on the star, and everything else became secondary. So as you can see in this one here, dot to dot yet again, and again I went back to the swirls, loop-to-loops in the Christmas one here. It's going closer so you can see that. This was very quick to make, very enjoyable, completed in 2 hours. It really wasn't difficult at all, Really beautiful Christmas quilt. Love it, love it, love it. On the back, I used that particular print there. I'm not sure what it is, but it's, you know, it's just a basic print, but you can see all the quilting. I use a gray thread because on the back it's not Christmassy, is it? So yeah, but you can see all of the quilting. On the binding, I used the same leftover from the scraps that I had here. So that kind of stayed throughout the theme of the star. And that's why I wanted to have all the strips the same, so they kind of correspond with each other. So I hope you can see the method in my madness. So you see this one is different to this cream here, but yeah, it still works. It still works. And if you notice, this strip here is wider. It's the widest strip in this half square triangle block here, isn't it? Rather than these here. But again, it works. Hence the reason why I said you can do different sizes. It doesn't have to be, you know, really big ones. I think when you have different variation of sizes, it works. Again, if you're looking at this one here, you can see where the strips is smaller at the bottom, bigger at the top. But to me, that gives the uniqueness of the block. Even with the friendship stars, you know, they are all different. Again, it's a scrappy quilt, but I think it looks lovely. I'm thinking of putting it on the table to see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay, so let's put it on the table and have a look. So hopefully, I think it's so beautiful. The fabric I used at the back, it's not cotton only. I can't remember what it's mixed with. Hopefully you can spot it through the camera. But what it does is give it a little bit of sturdiness to the quilt. So the front is all cotton, but the back isn't. I can't remember what the fabric was, but it looks lovely and I like it. It's make it more table-ish. That's why I think it will be suited for the table. All right, so let me put it on the table and see what it looks like. All right, so this is how it comes across to me. Let me know what you think. Can it be used as a Christmas table quilt or not? Or is it too much white? The thing is, I mean, I wouldn't use it as that, to be honest, because I would be so fearful of it getting all messy. You know, I would be so fearful of it getting messy, and I just think it's a big no-no. It will be suitable as a wall hanging. I think it would look beautiful as that. And I think the intention for me when I made this was to use it on the sofa or the couch, which I think is look beautiful as decoration for Christmas. But as it's laid out here, let me give you a little bit of quilting visual, much more better. It looks so lovely. These feathers are amazing, and you can see the yellow thread. Very beautiful. And quilting to me always brings out the beauty in the quilt. Definitely. But yeah. Okay, so let me know down below, would you make something like this? Yeah, it looks lovely here. It does look lovely here. I'm liking it. I'm falling in love with it. I mean, you change the vase to a Christmas vase, you know, it will look beautiful. But I said my only worry will be the fact that it may get dirty. With Christmas meat, juices and everything else. I would be too worried to use it. At the end of the day, it's for sale. So if you'd love to buy it, by all means. It's not something I would use, to be honest. Because obviously I've got so many more quilts to use. But yeah, I think it's suited for on the sofa, definitely. Beautiful, beautiful quilt.